the stock market is a giant bubble in search of a pin. And you've got Bitcoin, you've got the bond market, you've got real estate. And I'll tell you, the value of real estate in California just got cut in half. So there are some immense forces in play that no one can really predict what's going to happen. However, it's very easy to predict whatever happens is going to be bad. So my belief is the stock market's an accident waiting to happen. And it's like Bitcoin, you've got a lot of people playing musical chairs, and everybody thinks when the music stops, they're going to be able to reach a chair. And there's one slight problem with that theory. And that is, what if there's no chairs?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of CEO and Market Expert Interviews. I'm your host, Lucian. Some of you know me as Triangle Investor for social medias. I'm joined today by Bob Moriarty, a well-known name among commodity investors. He's the founder of 321gold.com and 321energy.com. Bob, it is an honor to have you in my show. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you for the invitation. It's actually my honor.
Yeah, thank you very much once again for coming. Let's start with my first question, and that is about the stock market in 2025. I think among 100 people that I talked with on that subject, 95 of them said that the stock market is heavily overvalued, pumped with printed money liquidity, and it's about to crash or correct big. What is your take on the current stock market and its heading in 2025, especially after the inauguration we have?
If you followed me, you're well aware I'm a contrarian. And actually, when 95% of people agree on anything, it scares me. That said, sometimes there are external events that have a massive impact, true black swans. And I'm going to tell you that what's going on in California right now is a true black swan. And the numbers that I'm seeing are 50 million to 150 million in billion in damages, and it could go 2 or 3 times higher than that. To put that in perspective, when the United States blew up Nord Stream, that was a $30 billion act of terrorism on the part of the United States. That has bankrupted Germany, and it will, in time, bankrupt the EU. So getting back to the stock market, the question has to be, and I do this, and a lot of listeners hate this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Where is the money going to come from to rebuild those houses?
Yeah, that's a hard question. Multi-billion-dollar question.
Well, strange enough, it's got to come from somewhere. And the state of California is like the state of Illinois. It's functionally bankrupt. So they've got a real problem. And that has the potential for bankrupting every insurance company that's doing business in California. And they had a backup state plan. But how valid is the backup state plan when the state's bankrupt? So the stock market is a giant bubble in search of a pin. And you've got Bitcoin, you've got the bond market, you've got real estate. And I'll tell you, the value of real estate in California just got cut in half. So there are some immense forces in play that no one can really predict what's going to happen. However, it's very easy to predict whatever happens is going to be bad. So my belief is the stock market's an accident waiting to happen. And it's like Bitcoin, you've got a lot of people playing musical chairs, and everybody thinks when the music stops, they're going to be able to reach a chair. And there's one slight problem with that theory. And that is, what if there's no chairs?
Yeah, that's a big problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bob, you mentioned Bitcoin, real estate, and the stock market. What event of those three could be a trigger, first trigger for the market correction or crash?
Who cares? Okay, we have a series of bubbles. You failed to mention the bond market. We've got the stock market clearly in a bubble. We've got Bitcoin. My friend that I was talking to just before this interview had an investment in XRP that was up, I think, 347% in 2 weeks. Okay. Nothing goes up 347% in 2 weeks. So you've got the bond market, you've got the stock market, you've got Bitcoin, you've got real estate. You want cheap real estate? Go to California. As it were, they have a fire sale going on.
Yeah, let's say I'm your first cousin, and you said that we are in a bubble, number one, number two, number three, and I ask you a question. Okay, we are in a bubble, it's about to crash, the market is about to crash. Bob, tell me, where should I put my money? What would you say to me?
Strange enough, that's a really excellent question. You should put your money into something that is not part of the bubble. And I happen to believe the highest value of precious metals is not their investment potential. It's their potential as an insurance policy against chaos. But the cheapest thing in the world right now is resource stocks. They're literally being given away. So sell what is most popular and buy what is least popular.
Yeah, that is a contrarian view I have all my life, and it treats me very well. But before we touch on the resources and energy sectors, I want to ask you about this current sentiment. You probably communicate with a lot of people, investors from a lower scale to higher one, and doing a lot of interviews. Of course, what would you say is the current sentiment among investors and their expectations?
Okay, let me give you the most perfect example I think I've seen in 20 years. What is the market cap of Fartcoin?
Not sure right now, but it's big.
$1.5 billion. What is the only thing Fartcoin has going for it? What is the unique selling proposition, a USP? If you're ever in retail, you need a USP for every product, a unique selling proposition. What's the USP for Fartcoin?
It's me.
The name?
Mm-mm. You
There
tell
is
me.
no value. It is a fictitious investment based on pure speculation, and it's got $1.5 billion market cap because of its name. Now, if that is not the sound of a bell ringing at the top, I don't know what is. In March of 2000, I read an article about inmates in a jail in Baltimore, Maryland, holding stock picking contests. If that isn't the mark of a top. I don't know what is. So we're seeing a lot of indications that markets are ready to roll over. We somehow have to make it through another week. And this is probably going to be the most dangerous week in world history to see if Donald Trump is actually elected or takes office. Okay. That would be a week from now. But what are the chances of that happening? And the fact is, we don't know.
Yeah. Okay, the black scenario is on the table. How black? Do you see 1929 all over again, 2008? How are you looking at?
No, not at all. It's going to be worse.
Much worse than 1929.
Much worse.
That's a horrible prognosis that I really would like that.
Oh, actually, it's a good prognosis.
Yeah. Yeah, in every hard time somebody makes a profit. I agree on that.
If you break your arm, you have to go through the pain of having the bone reset. But what is the alternative to going through the pain? And that is you just don't do anything about it. If you don't do anything about it, that you get gangrene, you lose your arm and maybe your life. So we're going to go through pain, and it's going to be extreme pain because this economy is so far out of whack. A good analogy is what's going on in California right now, which was entirely preventable. And every agency, from the governor of the state to the mayor of the city to the head of the water board, every agency had a 100% failure rate because they're worried about ESG and DEI, which is totally insane. And what nobody was worried about was cutting the brush that causes the fire. Now, do you understand the sequence of events? How did those fires start? What did it take? If you're a cook and you're going to make a pie, and the pie is called California burning down, what are the ingredients that have to come together to have a catastrophe like this? That's a real question. What do you need? What has to happen? Come on. I'm asking a question.
No, you tell me, please.
Okay. You have to ignore the brush, and it will build up every year. Okay. If you don't cut it down, or if you don't have controlled burns like they did 200 years ago, or 300 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, you build up this incredible pile of incendiary material. And you need Santa Ana winds. Okay, these are very strong, sometimes almost hurricane force winds. Why do you need the wind? There's two reasons.
Which one?
When the wind blows, and it blows power lines up against trees that have not been trimmed, what happens? You get sparks. Okay. And when you get lots of sparks falling onto dry timber, what happens? You get a fire started. And when you've got this 50 or 60 or 80 or 100 mile an hour wind, it can spread those fires hundreds of meters a minute. And that's exactly what they've run into. So we had a series of perfect events that were predictable. When Gavin Newsom took office as governor, he said, okay, we're going to sort out the potential fire issue. We know it's a problem. We're going to do something about it. He didn't do anything about it. And then the good citizens of LA voted, as it were, for a black lesbian as mayor. And she wasn't selected based on her competency. She was selected on what's not between her legs. Okay. So what we've got is these grossly incompetent people doing nothing when somebody has to take action. And they hired a woman to be in charge of the water board who had worked for PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric. Pacific Gas and Electric went bankrupt to $30 billion in damages because they had power lines that started fires that did billions of dollars in damages. So the woman who was hired to head the water department, they doubled the salary over the person who had been there before her. She takes office, and they've got a giant reservoir. I think there were 127 million gallon potential that she never had filled. And they had dozens or hundreds of fire hydrants that they knew were working. So this was something that was entirely preventable, entirely predictable. Joe Rogan predicted it months ago, said this was going to happen. He had talked to a fire department official, and the guy said, there's nothing we can do to prevent it. It's going to happen. And it has.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. But that's going to be a giant wake-up call, because all this woke bullshit that we've been fed for years, that a person who's 6'3", who's gone through puberty as a male, who's still got his dick, still got his balls, if he puts on a women's swimsuit, he can compete against women. What? That's stupid. He's not a woman. So the DEI hiring people just because they're homosexual, hiring people just because they're black, hiring people just because they hate whites, hiring people just because they're women. It's all bullshit. You should hire people based on their competency and their ability to do their job. So think of what's happening in California as a giant pimple on the economy of the United States and the world, and it just popped.
Right. Central banks are buying gold as a hedge against the economic instability. I just saw this morning an article on Reuters where they say central bank gold purchases are expected to continue this year. Do you agree on that? And is that the reason why we saw again a peak of purchases in November? Is that a good signal from central banks before the inauguration?
Now, wait a minute. I already answered that question. Remember when I said that gold and silver is an insurance policy against financial chaos? We all need reserves. You need it as an individual, you need it as a family, you need it as a town or city, you need it as a country, and you certainly need it as a bank. So what they're doing is they're looking at the world and the state of the economy and saying there are some very dangerous black swans flying, and we need to protect ourselves. And that's exactly the reason that individuals should be doing the same thing.
Yeah. What about silver?
Silver is absurdly cheap. My belief is if you're faced with 3 or 4 different alternatives for investing, you should buy what's cheap and you should sell what's dear. And gold is near, I think it's like $85 away from the highest price it's ever been. And silver's $20 away from the highest price it's ever been. Silver hit a high of $50.25 on January 21st of 1980. That was 45 years ago. So silver's got a long way to run. In my opinion, and it's just my opinion, I didn't come down the mountain with Moses. My opinion is silver will be the most attractive investment in the resource sector.
I actually agree on that. Maybe one commodity could outperform silver, and that is uranium. I know that you like uranium, same here. Do you believe that uranium equities will perform better in 2025? And we have a lot of positive news when it comes to uranium and nuclear energy, but somehow some group of stocks did not perform on that news. Do you see that about to change?
Yes, absolutely. And that's what Rick Rule was talking about recently. He said that resource stocks, and you absolutely have to include uranium as a precious metal. What's happened is all this woke bullshit and green energy that doesn't work is blowing up in the face of the idiots who were trying to sell it. And they realized, hey, wait a minute, nuclear power is a very cheap, very safe form of energy, and we need more of it. Germany had gone to the point where they had shut down their nuclear plants. And there's a German word, I can't tell you what it is. There's a German word for a lack of wind. And literally for the last 2 or 3 weeks, there's been a lack of wind in Germany. So all the wind turbines are just sitting here like this, doing nothing. And there are times the wind doesn't blow, and there are times the sun doesn't shine, and green energy has been oversold. It is not a solution. It is a very expensive problem. And luckily, what's happening in California is going to force a revaluation of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And we've got a new president, and he says that he wants to change things, and certainly any change from the Biden-Harris administration is almost certainly a good change.
When it comes to uranium, any specific stocks that you like or group of stocks? I mean, the explorers, the developers, the producers.
I think you could walk into a dark room, and you could put all the stocks, the name of the stocks up on a wall. You could shut the light off and throw a dart and hit something. Uranium is very cheap. And a lot of the things that are going on from a geopolitical point of view, Trump likes to govern by bluster. And he wants to threaten China, and he wants to threaten Russia, and he wants to threaten Mexico, and he wants to threaten Canada. And when you are prepared to go into combat and you spent months and months and months training and planning, what is your enemy doing at the same time?
Preparing.
They're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So you could threaten Canada, and all that Canada has to say is, remember the Athabasca region where all that uranium comes for your nuclear power plants? Well, take it and shove it where the sun doesn't shine. Threatening China. Okay. So China said, okay, remember those rare earth elements that you need for your magic economy? We're not going to ship them to you anymore. You threaten Russia, and Russia says, oh, by the way, you get 40% of your uranium from us. All we have to do is shut it off. So I believe the very best form of business is doing business transaction where everyone wins. That's called a positive sum game. Donald Trump, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, George Soros all believe in zero-sum games. And in a zero-sum game, I win, you lose.
Okay, Bob, so your list of undervalued commodities looks like this: silver number one, uranium number two, or gold is number two. I'm not sure. So what is three, four, and five?
Well, actually, again, this is walking into a dark room with a dart and throwing it against the wall. All resource stocks, and this would certainly include energy in the form of oil and natural gas, and it would certainly include food. Okay. California produces, I think, something like 40% of all the fruit and vegetables sold in the United States. It's an interesting factoid that the distance from San Francisco or LA to New York is 2,500 miles, and the average food in the United States travels 3,000 miles, okay, getting to the consumer. And everything is priced for perfection. And all it takes is one giant black swan, and all your supply chains are broken. So the impact of what's happening in California is going to be a lot greater than anybody realizes. And I would love to be able to say, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. And I can't do that. It's like asking me which bubble's going to break first. I don't know. I'm not smart enough. I don't think anybody's smart enough. But what happens if you go down to a toy store, you buy the biggest balloon they got, and you start blowing it up? What do you know is going to happen?
It's gonna blow.
It's going to blow. Okay, you don't know when it's going to blow. You don't give a shit when it's going to blow. You just know that it's going to blow. So we've got a lot of bubbles, and it is a time for safety. And in time for safety, you go for what is the least bubbly.
The least bubbly. I like that. Is there, Bob, is there any commodity that you are bearish on, maybe?
Yeah, government stupidity.
Of
Uh,
course.
the what's happening in California and what the Biden administration has done, it's almost embarrassing. I'm embarrassed to be an American because we've got so much stupidity coming out of Washington, D.C., and even Donald Trump. Donald Trump wants Greenland, and he wants the Panama Canal, and maybe he wants Canada. Well, I've been to Greenland 15 or 20 times. I've flown through there when I was delivering airplanes, and I've also gone to see mining projects. Greenland's a really expensive place to operate. So if the United States is not exploiting the resources they have within the United States, okay, what chance do they have of success in Greenland? The answer is near zero. So we're taking on some challenges that we have no ability to actually accomplish anything in a positive way. So I am most bearish on government stupidity, which is just absolutely monumental. Mayorkas, a week before Donald Trump's about to take office in an election that he clearly won, honestly. He won the election 2020, honestly, too, but we won't talk about that. Mayorkas gives citizen rights to hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants, which is totally insane.
Yeah, that was Bob Moriarty. Bob, thank you very much for this interview. I learned a lot, as always, from your interviews, and I look forward to host you again since this is our first interview, but definitely not the last. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. And I can assure you that 2025 is going to be a very interesting year. And in China, when you wish people an interesting time, That's a curse.